The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development, with a platform and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co. So in 2006, kettle and toaster salesman Adam Walker watched a movie on an aeroplane and decided to take one of the world's most ultimate challenges and swim the English Channel. This led Adam on a path to change his life forever. He went on to swim 6 more channel swims and successfully completed each one on his first attempt. Adam went from a daily routine of work, eat and sleep to training himself physically and mentally to cope with arguably the most difficult endurance challenge on the planet. Contending with deadly marine life, huge swells, current and cold temperatures. Adam Walker is the first British person to swim the Ocean 7, the toughest 7 channel swims in the world. He is the 5th person in the world to complete this incredible feat. It is the ultimate endurance challenge, the ocean's equivalent to the 7 summits, and he is the 2nd person in history to complete all 7 on the first attempt. The reason I wanted to interview Adam is because I'm a massive fan of sports people and elite athletes, and I love the work, the hours, the mindset, the endurance that they go through in order to achieve what they achieve, which, looks relatively easy. But I can only imagine what it's like to swim like Adam was swimming for hours and hours and hours, against the odds, against the weather, where the currents are pulling you and pushing you, or when you're swimming with sharks, or in his case, when he was swimming with an injury or stung by a jellyfish. It's beyond me. And I just believe that, the kind of mindset that you have to achieve what Adam has achieved is amazing. So there's no doubt you're going to learn some valuable and interesting things in this interview. Thank you. Hi, I'm Bernardo Moya from The Best You, and welcome to Inspiring People. Today I've got the pleasure of interviewing Adam Walker, who is a record-breaking swimmer who has crossed and made his mission to cross 7 of the most dangerous oceans in the world, also known as Ocean 7. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for being here today.
No, my pleasure.
Adam, how's things okay?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, pleasure
Good.
to be here.
Thank you for sparing some time. I know you're revving up for your next event, but tell me a little bit about yourself. Where you born up and what was your early years like?
Yeah, sure. So I live in Nottingham. I was brought up in Nottingham, so in the Midlands. And I suppose a normal childhood. Went to school and played a number of different sports, cricket, tennis, loved sport. Sport was kind of always, I was looking at the clock to see when I was out on the field, and, some of the other school subjects I wasn't so bothered about. Quite liked English, but that, yeah, just a normal childhood, really.
So I've always been a big fan of sports and things, and was there any sports in particular that you stood out from early age?
Yeah, I played a lot of cricket. I played for Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire at a younger age, and under-19s for Notts as well as I got older. But as I got more and more injuries, I always turned back to swimming. Swimming was the one sport I could do where I didn't seem to get injured. So I played a lot of rugby as well. My father actually played representative rugby for a number of different clubs. And so lots and lots of different sports: football, rugby, whatever I could get my hands on.
Brilliant. And then, so when you finished school, what did you study, or what did you get in? What was your first job?
Yeah, so I did a sports degree, actually a sports science degree, and I finished that and was going to become a PE teacher. That was the idea, and that kind of fell through when I thought, actually, I could do with a job now. So I went to Australia and came back, and my whole family had been in sales, so I picked up the sales magazine, and my first job was for Coca-Cola as a sales rep. Van salesman, so a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. And how was what was that like? How long were you selling for?
Well, I've done it for the last 13 years, and it's only recently that I've branched out and started doing other things regarding the swimming. So I've had various different jobs, from Coca-Cola to Nestle to a pet food company to packaging to electrical, kettles and toasters. So not quite as exciting as the swimming, but you've got to pay the bills. So it was a job, really.
And what is it you currently do now?
So I'm a swimming coach. I do swim camps across UK and Europe and globally as well now. And so I teach people to swim and to get better, video analysis, and also I look at the psychology aspects as well, and nutrition. And a lot of people want to tap into my brain in terms of getting through those milestones. And open water swimming is the biggest growth sport in the country. So
wow, interesting. Now, I'm going to have to read it, because obviously you've crossed in 2008 was the English Channel, which you completed, the Gibraltar Strait, which was there and back. That was in 2010. 2012, the Malacca Strait. 2012, the Catalina Channel.
That's right, yeah.
The Sugaru in 2013. 2014, the Cook Strait. And then now this year, which you said in 5 weeks' time, you've got the North Channel, which is your last...
Yeah. The last of the 7 to complete 7 years of my life.
Wow. So obviously, as you said, this has happened over 7 years. How have you felt? I mean, obviously physically, are you noticing much difference between then and now? Or are you more experienced? Yeah,
I'm more experienced. It's like everything in life. The more experience you get, the more confident you get, and the more capable. And this is no different. When I started, I hadn't actually swam for 8 years, and from nothing. And how it all came about was I watched a movie on an aeroplane about a guy swimming the channel. It was a fiction movie. He'd lost his job, and it was one of these feel-good movies, British movies. And he ends up obviously swimming the English Channel. And I watched this, put my headphones down, and said to myself, I think I'll do that. I think I'll swim the English Channel after no experience, or it just came into my head.
Which is what one does after watching something like that.
Well, yeah, it's a good job it was that movie and not something else, I guess.
So basically, you put your head around it. You saw the movie, and you decided within a year you wanted to do that. So tell me about that process of you thinking you wanted to do that. So obviously, you probably made a picture, a movie in your head. But what about the process of you training? Can you tell me how that works?
Yeah, of course.
out?
Yeah, I mean, following that, obviously, I then thought, well, how do I go about this? So I looked on the internet and what was involved, and there wasn't a lot there. Now there is. There's more people wanting to kind of do the odd swim, not the 7, but do the odd swim. And so I thought, well, where should I start? I know, I'll jump in a local pool and swim an hour and see how far I get, and coughing my guts up after an hour, no coach, did the same again and the same again until I could do 2 hours, 3 hours, and then eventually 5 hours in the pool. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I am capable of this. But of course, you then have to get into colder water. I don't like using that word, but you do. And I got into a local lake, and it was 9 degrees. And me being the tough guy that I thought I was, I thought, well, I had no plan of how long I was going to swim for. I just thought, keep swimming until you can't anymore. So I swam 45, 50 minutes in 9 degrees. And if you run a cold bath, it's around about 16, 17 degrees. So 9 degrees is pretty chilly. And it was frost on the ground. Started to hyperventilate, but carried on and thought, I'm never going to get out of any swim that I do. And long story short, 5 paramedics later, and severely hypothermic, and blood actually patches coming back to my extremities. So it was very dangerous, and I don't recommend it. But it was one of those times in life where you can get barriers and you can overcome them, and this was my first one to say, actually, are you capable of doing something like this? You've nearly killed yourself. But actually what I did was thought, okay, well, let's do it properly now. Let's do it under proper controlled conditions. And almost if you're silly enough to do that, you're silly enough to carry on with it. So that's what I did. I went to Dover, trained in the summer in May when they start, because there's you get a group of guys, either relays or solos, trying to train there, and you've got to get used to that temperature, which was 8 degrees, and then you build up from there. So that was the journey, really. I went through some pretty horrific times, if I'm being honest. One in particular, after 3 hours of a 6-hour training session, I was shivering uncontrollably. I had a nosebleed, I had a headache, I was being sick, all at the same time. But I finished that training swim. I had another 3 hours to go, and I went through moments like that where there was a barrier, overcome the barrier, but make sure whatever you set yourself, you achieve.
Well, I just wanted to go through those milestones. So the first time when you decided to go for it, and then 5 paramedics later, you were there. How long did you swim for then?
So that was 45 minutes initially, but 9 degrees is pretty cool.
So you decided, obviously, that was your kind of approach originally, was to just jump into the
Just jump in, I had, I don't recommend it to anyone, by the way, but I had no knowledge. I thought, look, I'll go into a lake. It was end of October, so it wasn't the warmest in this country. And I thought, well, I'll swim the length of the regatta, which was 2 kilometres. That was my initial thought. So that's what I did. I swam the length. Fortunately for me, a boat came out, thinking, why have we let him in here? Dumped me back in the boat and whizzed me back to stay warm, and couldn't remember my name and various different things. But it was a lesson, and it didn't scare me. And I think that's.
Well, what did you learn from these things? Because obviously, as you were saying, for the first time it happened, and then when you started training in Dover and you had these shivers, what did you actually learn from that?
I learned you've got to do things in the right way and train in the right way. I'm very disciplined in how I train and what I drink now. And, from the start, I had none of that knowledge. I was kind of thinking, look, I'm a tough guy. I can cope with this. What's a bit of cold water? But it's not the most pleasant to immerse yourself in cold water, let me tell you, for a long time. So, there was a big lesson there.
So then after you had, where you had the shivers and all the other things happening, how do you motivate yourself then to get back into the water and do it again?
Yeah, the first time I went in, obviously there's those memories of what's just happened, and you have to realise how important something is to you. And this became extremely important, was my number one priority. And so, again...
What was important to you, sorry?
So what was important?
Yeah.
To overcome the concern and maybe the fear of being so cold and what that would do to me. So I had to get my head in the right place to overcome that fear.
Okay. And how did you get your head in the right place to continue training?
Yeah, I just believed. I believed I was going to do it. It's a hard one to explain, but I think if you believe in yourself, that you're going to do something, you can with the right training. And I've always believed that. And what makes me different than anybody else really out there was my attitude. And Captain Webb did it in 1872. I kind of believe that, I can be capable of that if I work hard. So I just thought about the end goal, how it would feel to achieve such a feat. And I didn't want to be reminded for being a salesman selling kettles and toasters.
Okay, so you actually you were starting to experience or visualize how you would feel once you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. Yeah. Like, for example, when you crossed the English Channel, which took you 11 hours and 35 minutes, I believe. So are you actually seeing yourself crossing it? Do you see, is it a movie? In your mind, does the whole thing go easily, or you go through a process? How does it work?
Yeah, in a sense, I try and visualise myself swimming well and, swimming efficiently and think about the technique. I also think about, what it would feel like on the other side, like I said, but just be strong-minded. And you always get these devils on your shoulder saying, it's cold, it's too cold, you're freezing, you know, all these kind of things. And you have to combat them. So I always go back to positive thinking. I always think that I'm warm. I always think that I'm strong and powerful and so lucky. And that's the point as well of how lucky I am. There's a lot of people sitting at home not wanting to do these challenges. And I thought, I've got myself into this position to do something, for me personally. But also I wanted to do something for my charity Dolphin Conservation, which suited very well this challenge. So I think about the charity, I think about my family who've supported me, all the time away from home, the money spent training, all these things, and I just didn't give myself a choice.
Brilliant, thank you. So you're just focusing permanently on good, positive stuff, and you don't listen to the little devil on your...
No,
you tell him to be quiet.
The devil's always there.
Yeah.
The devil tries to say, look, you're uncomfortable here, let's get you out of this mess, and you have to put the devil to one side. But of course, in the first swim, it's more challenging because you've not been in that position before. And I was sick probably 20 times in the first couple of hours, and the devil said to me, you can't be so sick and get across 21 miles. And then I thought about all these things that I've just discussed and thought, I don't have an option. If the boat wasn't there, you would swim across. If you had to swim across to save your family, you would do it. Don't give yourself an option.
Thank you. With the in NLP, for example, we know we've got an internal dialogue, a voice in the back of our head. I mean, when you've got that devil voice, do you turn it off? I know you speak to yourself with positive, but do you actually turn it off? The voice?
I think whether you can fully turn the voice off, I'm not sure.
It turns back on.
It comes back on and it says, "Come on, we can get you out of this mess." I think by thinking positives and have the positive angel on your shoulder saying to you, "Come on, you can do this." You know, it's only one arm in front of the other till you get to the other side. It's one day of pain. What's one day of pain for a lifetime of success? And that's how I try to think of it. It's just one arm in front of the other. Okay, it's 70 to 80,000 strokes, but it's just one day.
11 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, the kind of things you do is obviously you've got to eat as you're going through your necessities. So how was this first one, the first one you did when you crossed the English Channel?
So, very sick, very choppy. I was told the day before that it was a 50-50 chance that we would go out because of the weather. It chopped up to 18 knots, which you shouldn't go out over 10. So very, very bad. Swimming in a washing machine over and over again, so made me extremely sick. And just got worse and worse, the waves getting hit left, right and centre. When I was 3 miles from the finish, which I knew was 3 miles because somebody told me, which they should never tell you, by the way, in channel swimming, and they said, "You've got 3 miles to go." That was after 8 hours. I swam another hour and a half, and I came back and said, "How long to go?" And they said 3 miles. And then my brain's going, hang on, didn't I just ask this question an hour and a half ago? So then I had to swim effectively another 3 miles and just thought one arm in front of the other till you get to the other side. I thought about the movie. I watched that movie 150 times. And even when I came in to finish, in the movie, they walk in, the guy kind of walks in and stumbles backwards. I got to my feet, I stumbled backwards like in the movie, and I kind of thought to myself, what am I doing here? I was kind of reacting the movie. And then I got onto the beach, cleared the water, and just kind of stood there. And a French family came over to me, and a little dog and little kiddie, and said, "Have you just swam from England?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know, I think so." I was kind of a little bit delirious. And they said, "Can we get a photo?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And they came in for the photo. I have a picture like this with my arm kind of there, just propped up, and they're propping me up. And they said, "Lovely to meet you, and we'll follow you on," etc. And I just swam back to the boat. And from there, I thought to myself, I never, ever have to do this horrific sport ever again. And that lasted for about 5 minutes until I thought, well, what's next? After being sick over the side, getting back onto the boat. And I thought, well, what would be a good swim to do? And I'd heard about this Gibraltar Straits, Spain to Morocco. And I thought, that sounds good. It would be a bit warmer, and there's dolphins and whales, perfect for the charity. Let's give that a go. So that's what I did. I started training for that. And me being me...
This was to cross from... Was it from Tarifa, or where was
Tarifa,
it from? Tarifa to Morocco?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And me being me, the devil on my shoulder said, "Oh, come on, Adam. It's half the distance of the English Channel. You know, that's a bit of a cop-out, isn't it?" So I thought, OK, well, I'll swim there and back. And only 5 people in the world had swum there and back, no British person. So I thought, oh, that's great. That'll be similar to the English Channel. I thought, why have so few people have swum there and back? Right. And I looked into the detail, and that's because you had to be super, super fast. And most of the 5 were ex-Olympic swimmers and, you know, really, really fantastic athletes. So, but again, I just believed I could train up to that level and do it.
So how long did that take you?
9 hours, 39 minutes. I broke the British record one way in order to come back. I actually said to them, what speed do I have to do in order to get back? Because you've got 8 miles of coastline, so you have to be so far across on the way back. They said 3.5 hours. I said, OK, what's the British record? 3.5 hours. So I said, OK, so I have to break the British record in order to come back. So I thought to myself, small chunks, feed to feed, because, you know, you get drinks every hour for the first 2-3 hours, and then every half hour. So I thought, go as fast as you can, and then give yourself a chance to come back. So that's what I did. My goggles actually filled up with water after 3 hours, and I still hadn't finished, so I just went flat out with salt water in the touched the rock. They screamed at me, come back. So I literally touched Morocco and then pushed off and on the way back. And then I found out why it's so difficult. It took me twice as long on the way back. And it started to try and push me out to the Atlantic, the currents. With the 8 miles of coastline, you've got to go fast. So fortunately for me, I managed to get across. Lots of amazing things happened. 3 dolphins swam underneath me. I could hear pilot whales talking to each other. So an amazing experience. And finished and really, really grateful that I did, because you're against nature. And that was the second. So then I thought, well, I've swum from England to France, Europe to Africa. What comes next?
If you're interested in working with me, contributing to the magazine, maybe speaking at any of our many events around the world, partnering or licensing The Best You, go to www.thebestyou.co.
How do you eat or drink? You don't stop. You carry on. Do you stop to eat or drink? Or
what happens is you get a bottle, so it could have, if you've got painkillers, or you put sponge cakes in it, or whatever you eat, or the carbohydrate drink, and it's tied to a piece of string. It's thrown over the side because you're not allowed to touch the side. There's certain rules in these channel swims. You have to do it like Captain Webb did it, which was swim hat, shorts, goggles, that's it. You can't wear a wetsuit. No. You have to be against the elements. Wow. So that's also the physical as well as mental challenge of it. It's not like swimming in a pool at 29 degrees. You are against the elements. So you can't touch the boat. There's an observer on the side making sure that you do things by the rules, and you literally squeeze the bottle, roll on your back, squeeze, drop the drink, and then swim on, and they'll pull it back up. Same, they might pass you a cake or instant sugar to try and give you energy, but you cannot touch the boat. And the other thing is you can't hang around to feed too long, because the currents are moving, so they can push you backwards, and it could cost you in the long run.
So you crossed the Spanish-Moroccan Channel. What was next?
Yeah. So then I heard about this thing called the Ocean 7. So this came out by a chap called Steve Munatones, who's very well respected in the open water swimming world, and he said these are the hardest 7 swims on the planet. He gave reasons why, and I thought, well, that would be a great challenge. You've done those 2. And Hawaii was on there, and I thought, what a great swim. Hawaii must be easier than the other 2. It's much warmer. It's Hawaii. So I took that on next, and that was the longest of all the 7, 26 miles. English Channel and Gibraltar around about 21 miles. So that's what I decided to take on. So I trained up for that, trained a longer distance, got on the plane. It took me 18 hours to get there. Arrived at 2 in the morning, got a call at 8 in the morning saying we're going at 3 in the morning, so 24 hours later. And I flew across to the island, Molokai as it's pronounced, to Oahu is the swim. And so I had to see the ocean as I flew across and where I'm about to swim. And I started around about 6 in the morning. And the reason I started at 6 in the morning, we met up at 3:30, was because we had to start in the light. We had to wait until it went light because of the sharks. Because it's shark bound at the nocturnal. So we waited until it was light, and then I started to swim. So I went on from there and was extremely tired for the first couple of hours because of, I think, maybe a bit of jet lag and the journey.
I think, yeah.
And I got 8 hours in and thought, God, I can see land. I'm 2 miles from land after 8 hours. And the worst thing ever happened. The pilot said he's going to break the world record, which is 12 hours. And from there, I started to go faster, and I went backwards for 3 hours because of the currents. So I literally just went straight backwards and probably lost another 2 miles. Then I went sideways. And the pilot was so confused what to do, because only 21 people in the world had ever crossed it, and he had taken maybe 10. Everyone had finished at the shortest point, and unlucky for me, I was going sideways. All 3 navigation systems were down, so he didn't know where he was in the middle of the ocean. My friend was trying to measure with a piece of cardboard and a pencil of where we were in the ocean. He was on the phone to someone to try and help him, and we just kept going sideways and sideways, and in the end, 13 and a half hours in, it started to go dark, and I had a light stick that's tied to me that, obviously, so they can see me. And I thought I'd better turn that off because of the sharks. And so I turned that off. And a kayaker actually came in off the boat to support me, for the sharks. And within 2 minutes of him coming in, I then had the most horrific pain that I've ever felt in my life, which I didn't know what it was at the time. And it turned out to be a Portuguese man-of-war. It left terrible scarring across my stomach, but I lost feeling in my spine. I started to, again, be really, really sick. They have the toxins, 75% of the toxins of a cobra snake. So what they do is, a Portuguese man-of-war isn't actually a jellyfish, it's made up of different organisms, and they shut down whatever they touch. So they consume the fish by paralysing them. And my spine went all numb, and I thought, I'm going paralysed here. And all I could think was, if you're going to paralyse me, at least let me finish this flipping swim, because I've just been out here 13 and a half hours. Anyway, in the end, it took me 17 hours, finished, cut my leg on a rock, and the kayaker said, wow, he said, you see that tiger shark? It was 5 metres away from you when you walked out. I said, no, I didn't see it. He says, it was just covered in sharks. So I stood on the beach, blood coming out my leg. My epiglottis, the dangly thing down your throat, was 3 times as big, so I couldn't breathe properly. And I had this horrific pain. I actually pulled 2 tentacles off my stomach, so I actually tore them off. And I read afterwards that you're supposed to delicately use maybe a credit card or something to rip, because they leave the poison in there.
Wow.
And salt water keeps the poison in you as well. It keeps the barbs alive, which will pierce you. So that was not the most pleasant experience, it's fair to say. And
was that the worst you've had out of all of them?
Yeah, I've had some pretty difficult times, but I think that was the worst for the sheer pain that I was in. And when I was actually stung, it was, how do you get through 3.5 hours of agony?
How do you?
I knew you could ask me that. Again, experience says you've got through 2 of them. This is another challenge. And I thought to myself, look, Adam, if you can get through this, you can get through anything. This is a real test. What are you capable of? And I guess, most people would get out and quit once they have that kind of pain and go to hospital, which is what you should do. But it was too important to me. I thought about, again, how far I'd travelled, how much effort I'd put in, the fact that I may not have another chance to do this ever again. And I thought, just stay with the programme, and all these devils, and there was lots of devils this time, all around my brain telling me to give up. And I tried to visualise the sting as a warm blanket around me. So I'm in the warm blanket, so I'm actually lucky because I can't get hypothermia, I can't be cold because of this warm blanket. So every time I felt the burning, which I can only describe as scalding yourself with hot boiling water, times that by maybe 1,000, and it has that sizzling feel to it. And I said to the kayaker, how long to go? And he said an hour at the time. I thought, I can't do 2 minutes here. And what I did was I built up lots of 2 minutes. I can do 2 minutes, fine. I can do another 2 minutes, another 2 minutes. It was supposed to take an hour, and it went on for 3.5 of all those 2 minutes added up, which is a lot of 2 minutes. But I remember standing on the beach in disbelief at how I'd got through it. But it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because now, what else could get me? It can't get much worse than that. So I was in a lot of pain for the next week.
I can imagine 99% of the people would probably definitely jump off and get on the kayak and move on.
Well, I should have gone to hospital, should have done that. But after 17 hours of swimming and tired, you don't want to go to a hospital. I actually sat in the shower. It was the only thing that stemmed the pain, the hot water. And every time I got out, I was in agony. So I had 7 or 8 showers that evening.
It's great advice anyway, what you were saying. Obviously, kind of, I've heard this, how do you eat an elephant, or a bite at a time? Well, chunking it down. Small steps.
Yeah, don't make it overwhelming. Advice. Don't think I'm going to swim for 17 hours, off I go.
Another 2 minutes.
Lots of 2 minutes, yeah.
Brilliant, great advice. So the same year you did the Catalina Channel?
Yeah.
That was 21 miles in the darkness, I believe, and...
Yeah.
What happened then?
Well, I was interviewed after Hawaii, and they said, what's next? I said, Catalina, but don't ask me about Catalina now, because I'll just say no way. And that was supposed to be a year later, and I did it within 3 months. It's funny how you forget the pain that you're in, and then you take on the challenge again. And like you say, the challenge with Catalina is you start at midnight, pitch black, you can't even see your arms going into the water, and obviously it's dark again, it's Pacific Ocean, so you know there's things in there and that you might not want to be. And it took me 6 hours in the dark and before it got light. And then I looked behind me, I had seals following me, and I kind of said politely, please go away, seals, because where there's seals, there's sharks. It was really, really foggy, so I couldn't actually see the end goal. And it was only within 100 metres of the end that I could actually see the finish. And at the fire service, they actually came out in the boat and they followed me in, cheering me on. The pilot played the bagpipes to kind of cheer me on, and my shoulder actually packed in with after the 6 hours, and the swim took me 12.5 hours. So the last 6 hours I was pretty much swimming with one arm. What I later found out was the tendon was ruptured, and what I should have explained earlier is when I swam the English Channel, I found out that I had a ruptured bicep tendon then, so they had to fix it before Gibraltar, and I've had 3 operations, so I've never actually been fit with these swims.
Oh, that's a small little detail you forgot out there, Adam.
I don't like to mention these things. It's negative. I like to think that people think I'm super fit.
I can see. So you had a torn shoulder for the last 6 hours of the swim?
Yeah. So you know, the shoulder wasn't working properly. It certainly wasn't pulling. And because I'm fairly stubborn, I thought, well, I've got another one that works. So, you know, there's people out there worse off than me. So I just kind of went through and made sure that I finished the swim. And the first half took round about 4.5 hours, and the second half took 7.5. So once it went, it was a bit of a struggle. But you know, I had this weakness in there that, but it's one of those things. You know, you just move on from it.
You can see how it's a bit of a struggle.
Well, yeah, but you know, I try not to dwell. I'm very fortunate. I've gone, as I say, before I started swimming in the English Channel, I had a problem in my shoulder. Didn't know the extent of what it was, and when I actually swam the English Channel, as I say, it turns out he said, "Look, you've ruptured your bicep tendon. You've swam the English Channel with one bicep tendon," and I ended up having 2 operations. He told me not to swim again. And I developed a better technique and to take pressure off the shoulder, and I've just managed it ever since. So, you know, you can imagine swimming with one arm, Catalina, I'd take that from being stung by a Portuguese man of water loose and fit in my spine, so you put it into perspective.
Any day of the week,
yeah.
And then after that, was it the Sugaru Channel, which you had massive currents?
Yeah, the last 2 have been a bit of a challenge. I mean, they've all been a challenge, but Sugaru, I had my 3rd operation in the January, and in May I started to try and slowly train and get back to fitness. It took me really until June before I was swimming any sort of distances, so I had a gap, and then I had 7-8 weeks to train, which was a challenge to get to you know, up to the mark that I needed to be. The swim is 15 miles. It looks like it's the easiest one of the lot, but actually it's quite the opposite. The currents are crossing each other in this channel. It's from a place called Honshu to Hokkaido in northern Japan, and only 16 people in the world had crossed it before I did it, no British person. And with the English Channel, if I can explain, if you're fast enough, eventually you will get there, you will hit land. It changes the current every 6 hours. With Japan, it can change every 5 minutes. And if you don't go faster than the current, then you're out to sea and you don't finish. And some of the best swimmers in the world have just not managed it. And with me, when I arrived, I ended up going again 24 hours later. I don't seem to be able to judge the timing right, but I have to go when the weather's right. And I try and arrive at the start of the tide, because you have a week normally of the tide time before, you know, your tide's over. So you have to go within that slot. With Japan, it was 2 days. So I either went this day or the next day. Anyway, it took 3.5 hours to get to the start line. It should take an hour and a half. So, you know, where we commenced the swim from. And the wind was coming in sideways. All the crew was sick before we'd even started. It was just horrific. And the pilot came out, and there was a translator with him, and said, you know, I think it will improve the further we get to land to Hokkaido, the other side. What do you want to do? And I was kind of like, the rain's coming in sideways, the wind is, you know, horrific. And I said, well, what about tomorrow? And he said, no, well, tomorrow could be worse or the same. It's up to you. Some people don't even swim. They just don't take it on. They just go home. And I thought, no, I'm here. Let's give it a go. After 30 minutes, I was sick. An hour, I was sick. An hour and a half, just being constantly seasick. And then after 4 hours, in a way, it was, I suppose, a good thing because it took my mind off the sickness. The translator said from the pilot that the tide is going so fast, you have to swim faster than the tide, which is 2.5 miles an hour, which against big waves is quite fast. So I said, how long for? And they said, until we tell you to stop. So I thought, hang on, I've got a big long swim here and I've got to swim So anyway, that's what I did. I swam for 25 minutes as fast as I could, and he said, we're good. 10 minutes later, he looked at his chart again, go again. Half an hour on, 10 minutes off. Half an hour on, 10 minutes off. And instead of the weather getting better, it just got worse. And in the end, I was riding up a wave so high that I was trying to figure out how I actually got through it. And within 10 hours in, I got the waves where you can hardly even see me. It was just so choppy. The pilot was worried about me. He suggested that we should finish it. And my friend had said no. This guy will not quit. Let's keep it going. And it was supposed to be 10 minutes of that, and that turned out to be an hour and a half. I got through that. I could see the finish. It flattened out. I thought, I'm going to make this. And then I was pushed back a mile. And then I swam a mile forward, a mile back. Just wasn't letting me in. And then it got dark. Saw a couple of sharks underneath me, and all I can see in the distance, the boat was trying to get close to me, and it's swaying all over the place. And what I was trying to do, these big waves were coming over, and I was trying to ride in on the waves. What was happening, unknown to me, was the current was pushing me backwards. So I was thinking I was going in, and it's getting further away. And there was a lighthouse that I could see, which was the finish, and it was like God just looking at me, and it was getting further and further away. And I think only with 700 metres to go, he just went, no current. And I said, no current, and I just went, like my life depended on it. And even with probably 20 metres to go, I didn't trust the currents. And I was kind of clampering up the rock, and I finished, and it took me 15.5 hours. And it was something else, that swim. And I can only say that my heart was pounding that much that, and I had to just keep pushing through. My heart was just, because the training, it wasn't the same training, but I had to find probably another 50% more than I ever had, even when I was fitter, showing that mentally, if you stay with it and believe, you can do it. It's not focusing on, oh my goodness, I'm very, very tired, I'm not going to make this. Small chunks, stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. All those small chunks add up to 15.5 hours. And that was that.
But that's what I was going to say, is that there's a limit of how much you can train. You can train physically, but how can you train yourself mentally for the unknown situations like you've come across? I mean, how, even in your worst case scenario, I suppose you could have never imagined that would have happened.
You can't. The honest answer is you can't really train mentally for things like this. You can train in the sea, you train in the harbour, you get a boat which takes you out and you swim for a number of hours. But when you're swimming across a channel, you don't train to swim. You don't. That's not a training program to swim across a channel. So anything can happen, and all those dips in cold water and all those experiences of overcoming them make you more mentally strong. So then, when you get something else, your mind goes into turmoil. But how strong are you? How much do you want it? And that's what it always comes down to. I think is, do you want it enough? Are you willing to go through all this pain, this torturous pain, to finish this swim? How much does it mean to you? And to me, there isn't enough that I can go through that will stop me from making it. It's too big a deal for me.
To find out more about our latest projects, get a free coaching lesson, or download my book, go to www.bernardo-moya.com.
And even with the thought of completing it, I suppose kind of your experiences that you've already gone through, which you've had a few over the years, that must help you. It must help you reinforce to know that you are more than capable of doing it now, I'm saying.
Absolutely. You have that confidence, that inner confidence that you get from doing a number of these swims. And that's why I say I'm so fortunate to be stung so badly like I was, because now it's made me much stronger. Then I had Japan, where I was fighting against currents and weather and wind and sea. That's another thing ticked off. So another area ticked off. So all these areas make you the person you are, and the confidence. And you, hang on a minute, Adam. Hang on a minute, devil. You've gone through all this. You can't quit now. You've never quitted anything. You can swim 17 hours with a man-o'-war sting. You can swim 15.5 hours having effectively sprinted across a channel, you've no excuse. So that's I give myself no excuse, really. The devil,
fantastic.
shut up, devil.
Now, then after that, you took the Cook Strait, which is in New Zealand. To tell me about that, how that was the last one you've done so far.
Yeah, what an amazing experience that was, yeah. So that was 16 miles, and it has 3 currents to get across. So you have the first part, the middle part, and the end part. And this, again, is about speed with these currents. You have to have a certain amount of speed. And I left after around about 3 days of arriving in New Zealand, so quite a long time for me to acclimatise. Yeah. But I couldn't sleep after around about 5 o'clock, and I was sleeping at 5, waking up at midnight, and I did in the day before. So I had a lot of jet lag, and I was really quite tired when I started the swim again. I mean, at one point, I'm actually going to be fully fit and have energy before I do one of these swims.
A couple of weeks before.
Yeah, exactly. Do a sensible thing, but it's just the way it's turned out. But 3 hours into that swim, everything was going fantastic for the first hour. And by the time I got to 3 hours, I was feeling really tired. I wasn't holding down my drinks. I was very, very sick. I couldn't even hold down water or flat Coke, which sometimes steadies the stomach. Nothing. And after 3 hours, feeling quite low, but still believing I'm going to do it, whatever happens, I was getting more annoyed that why do I feel so bad as opposed to not making it. And suddenly a fin just careered towards me so fast that I couldn't make out what it was. And just kind of in a blink of an eyelid, I thought, please be a dolphin, not a shark. It went underneath me, and we had 2 boats, a main fishing boat and a small rib that was alongside me. And they went, whoa, in a happy sort of a whoa way. Yeah. And so it turned out it was dolphins, and there was a pod, at least 10 to 12 dolphins that surrounded me. And the most incredible experience, of course, with my charity being the Whale and Dolphin Conservation. And I just felt like they'd come to help me out, that I was feeling a bit low. And after around about 10 minutes, I happened to look down because obviously I was looking up at all the dolphins, all the activity, and I normally swim there. So I looked down. As I looked down, there was a shark floating beneath me. And I could tell it was a shark, the size of it and the shape, and it was just drifting lower. And the dolphins with me. And I took my mind away from the shark. I've seen a number of sharks. I'm not blasé about sharks, by the way, but you have to get your mind in the focus. So I kind of thought, well, look, this is an amazing experience. All these dolphins, it's a once in a lifetime. So I was focusing on the dolphins, not the shark. And then round about after half an hour, I would say, the shark disappeared, but the dolphins stayed with me. And they would never leave my side for more than, say, a couple of minutes, if that. They'd maybe play, do a few jumps. Right. I've got some incredible photos. And then they would come back to me. And it was like I was part of the pod. It was like in a diamond formation. I was in the middle. And I was so careful where I put my hands. And after about an hour, I thought, why are you being so careful? They can swim a lot faster than you, Adam. So I kind of started swimming properly. And they were 2 or 3 inches away. And I remember riding a wave on top of one. As I came down, it just kind of nudged. And one cheekily would kind of nudge its tail into me and touch me. And, they wanted to sort of play.
Just playing, yeah.
But the incredible thing was, when I went to get a feed to stop all the, I was at a standstill. They were just bobbing up and down, waiting for me. And you can imagine it's not SeaWorld. These aren't trained dolphins. And since then, I've had dolphin specialists say, look, we've worked 15 years with wild dolphins. They never spend that much time with another human being. So it's asking a lot of questions of why are they very similar to human beings in terms of, the feelings. And, there's a lot of unanswered questions due to that. And that they stayed with me for an hour and a half. And I was so grateful. And when I came in for the second feed, the guy on the boat said, look, I know they're distracting, but you need to get your head down and do part of this swim. It's not, a wildlife journey. I was like, yeah, fair enough. So I kind of thought at that moment, look, thank you, dolphins, for supporting me, but you need to go because I need to finish this swim. And it was the biggest regret I had because I put my head down. As soon as I put my head down, within 30 seconds, looked up and they'd disappeared.
Wow.
And I may never get that experience again. I was so lucky. I'd love to say to them, thanks for helping me out.
Oh, they are definitely a very intelligent species, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So tell us about your charity and who you support.
Yeah, so it's Whale and Dolphin Conservation. It has been throughout. They do some fantastic work in terms of preserving the whales and dolphins throughout the world. And I'm very against whaling. You know, there's a number of countries that do it, unfortunately, and I know, you know, in some countries, I guess the belief is it has to happen in terms of the population, but it doesn't really. You know, there's other food sources out there, and so I am very much against that, and I try and campaign alongside them as much as I can to make sure that, you know, these are restricted, whaling, because there are certain countries, as I say, that do it, and they campaign against these sort of things, and they also help preserve them. And because, you know, really, quite honestly, you know, we in the future, if we don't have any whales and dolphins, you know, then you know, we could say it's our fault for not preserving them. So I want to make sure that, you know, that we do. So it's very, very dear to my heart, and I think they do a great job in terms of keeping that population alive. And, you know, there's so many rare species out there. It's very important.
And so do you. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. So we've been talking about how you prepare. What does determination mean to you? What do you understand as determination to do something?
I think it's pushing yourself. You know, getting out your comfort zone. Having something, whatever it is, you know, with me it was swimming. It could have been anything. You know, if that movie was another sport, maybe it would have been another sport. I don't think, you know, I certainly wasn't a born open water swimmer. I'm 6'5", you know, I'm not the right shape. I wasn't very good at long distance as a kid. I think determination means getting out your comfort zone, pushing yourself for a target, whatever that is, and be relentless until you achieve that target. But you have to really be passionately wanting it, and that's when you get the determination to succeed, that it means so much to you that you will chase it whatever happens, and you'll never give up.
With in your early years, when you saw this movie and you decided, was there anybody or anything in particular that inspired you apart from the movie? Did you read anything? Did you see other people's you know, success stories? What inspired you?
I've always been very competitive. My brother played a lot of cricket, a lot of sport. We've been in the same teams together. My dad always said, you know, never give up, son. Whatever you do, give it 100%. Whatever happens, and you'll succeed. And I could hear him in my ears. Once I got going with it, and the actual English Channel swim, when I was struggling, I could hear him say, don't you give up, son, don't you give up. So I would say he inspired me to give whatever it is a go in life that you want to, and just give it 100%, and you might just succeed. So I would say he was very important in that process.
And anybody in particular, or anything inspires you now?
Just people who follow their dream. You know, lots of things inspire me. You know, I hear stories about ex-Olympic swimmers who have been knocked over and been paralysed and having to get to full fitness and then carry out another challenge or whatever that is, or, you know, lots of different things. And these people are fantastic, that, you know, they get knocked down and they come back up. And I would say there's not one individual necessarily, lots of people who take on their challenges, follow their dreams. You know, there's people trying to swim the English Channel, there's people trying to climb mountains. You know, as I say, some have disabilities. And these people are very, very inspiring. And I just, my hat goes off to them. And I think, you know, I would really encourage people to get out of the comfort zone and try something, and whatever they're passionate about. It's not easy to know what you're passionate about. You know, sometimes it just comes to you, like in a film. But keep your eyes open and follow your dreams. You know, make a difference in your life, because ultimately that will empower you and make you feel better, and there'll be that sense of achievement.
Great, Adam, thank you. So next is the North Channel. Is that your last?
Last of the 7, yeah.
The last of the 7.
So Northern Ireland to Scotland. The challenges there, I guess you're going to ask me what they are, because there always are some nice challenges. You've got lion's mane jellyfish, but we know the story of jellyfish. They're my good friends, so I'm sure they'll leave me alone this time. They can hospitalise you. They're quite toxic, so same sort of principle. And then you've got 11, 12 degrees. The coldest that I've swam in is 14, so it is pretty cool. And 20 people in the world have done it, but they've all been 3 times the size of me for insulation and to have a layer for the temperature. So I'm trying to prove that you don't necessarily need that layer in order to do it. So it'll be a great challenge. It's around about 20 miles, and it's seen on paper as the most difficult of the 7, but I have been through a number of things, as we discussed in the other one, so I would argue maybe, can I get much worse than I had before? But plan for the worst, and if it gets better than that and lets you through, then happy days.
And when you say that people were three times your size, did they put on weight to?
Yeah, there's a lot of the open water swimming as a whole. I'm trying to sort of argue the fact that you don't have to have that weight, but like a seal, they have that blubber and insulation, and it does, it can help to protect the organs to a degree. But I believe that psychology, also immersion, constantly going in and having those cold water dips, your body gets used to it. Your brain sort of says to your body, I'm okay. And so, yeah, a lot of them believe that if you are big, then it's going to really protect you. So, but I believe in my brain thinking that I can achieve it, and even if I have to come out in an ice cube, I will float across in an ice cube.
Well, good luck. I'm sure you'll do well. And so after the swimming, what's next? What do you plan to do next?
Well, I'm certainly not going to put my feet up in front of the sofa. I don't think I'm that sort of kind of guy. But yeah, I'm now looking at the next swim at the moment, a swim that no one's ever done, and just keep flying the flag for well in Dolphin Conservation, which is exceptionally important to me. And so there's a number of swims out there. I can't tell you what they are at the moment. It's a bit of a secret, but there will be one in the next sort of coming year or so, which I'll be training towards. So it's important to me to always think about the next swim, and I've always done that. I've just felt that it's a process I've got to go through, but I will get to the end goal. And now I've run out of swims, so what's the next one? So I need to have another swim to work towards. And it's brought me so much. The swimming community are fantastic, and this relatively new sport of open water swimming, which is you against nature. There's something quite incredible about it. And I just feel at home. I feel more at home, I think, in the water than I do on land. I just, when I'm with the creatures, whether it be sharks, dolphins, I just feel comfortable in there, with them. And it's something hard to describe, really. It's just a great feeling, and it's a great challenge of you versus the sea. And are you capable of getting across? And will it allow you to get across? And I've shouted many words to the sea in the past of, come on, give me a break now. You've proved your point that you're tough. I'm going to stay in here as long as it takes. So just let me across. And then now and again the sea goes, okay, we had a little battle, I'll let you in.
I'll let you in.
Yeah.
You proved yourself.
You proved yourself. You could get across now. But I told you it was tough. Yeah. But go on then. In you go.
And Adam, I suppose you must be really enjoying teaching kids and bringing the younger generation, and you must be a great teacher or a great example for these guys. How are you enjoying that part of educating and teaching people and talking to people?
Absolutely love it. Yeah, I do the school talks. I was part of a global Skype program, and I taught to various different primary, secondary schools, also businesses, the same sort of thing. But with the kids, absolutely, I've got a bit of a soft spot for teaching kids to bring them up into my world, because it's still relatively new. There is this little bit of a fear of open water, for your kids. Is it dangerous? But under controlled conditions, it's perfectly safe. And it is a life skill, so it's very, very important. And a number of pools are closing down in this country, and we've got lots of lakes and rivers. And I do think it's necessary to get these kids swimming, and you've got wetsuits and the right time of year you can do it. But I coach a lot of kids, as I say, adults as well. The big thing for me, people come to me for the way I swim, because I've had these 3 operations. I can't sleep on this side of the bed, but I can swim 17 hours. So they come for that technical analysis, and I've really had to change it, and also the mental side as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. And my last question, so is your book coming out soon? Is there a movie out about your...
There's lots of things going on. It's a good question. Yeah, lots of different things. Watch this space. Yeah, certainly. The obvious thing would be there's 7 swims there, and it'd be nice for people to hear about them more in detail, and also from from a TV point of view. You know, there's lots of connections going on with Dolphins, etc. And we'll just watch this space, because I'd love to, you know, to open the world up to this sport, because I don't think it gets the coverage that it deserves, because obviously it's not competitive against another person, it's competitive against yourself. But there's a lot of life lessons with this sport. Absolutely. And I think if it got the coverage, it would be great, and people would be really interested to give it a go.
Definitely deserves it. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was been great. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you very much for watching Inspiring People. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
For more information, go to www